welcome. We have a really huge crowd here, so thank you all for showing up on a Wednesday night. I know this is a pretty busy meetup night, so thanks for doing that. I think what we'll do is, just dive right in. We have three great speakers. I just wanted to introduce things a little bit and provide a sense of context for it all, so we know why the heck we're here, and we'll take it from there. So, quick bit about me. I lead operations at Near Protocol. So this is the space that we operate out of. We're hosting here tonight. Near is a scalable mobile-first blockchain, and we're happy to tell you more about it. We're also not a shitcoin. And actually, could everyone who's here from Near, could you just raise your hands? So we have some in the back, and then there's a co-founder hiding in the back there somewhere. Great. So we'll be around all night and happy to talk blockchain with you guys. That's why we're here. So why are we all here though? Basically, we want adoption. We want to build things that people actually use. We want to make sure that we have products that are actually usable, that are actually scalable, and as importantly, that are actually marketable and monetizable applications. Because I think right now we can all acknowledge that we're in a very early phase of blockchain where we haven't necessarily crossed all of these thresholds, and that these are really some of the characteristics that you need to drive a meaningful set of adoption that's actually going to cross the chasm and get us to where we need to be for the technology. So the path forward, you have to build products that are going to be usable, they're going to be useful, not just toys. I think today we're definitely in the toy phase, and it's definitely an important phase to go through, but ultimately these products have to be usable and useful. You have to actually create businesses, not just apps. So again, I think we're in a phase where we're really experimenting with a lot of the different things that the technology can use. But if we're going to take the next step forward, we have to create meaningful businesses with meaningful business models. We also have to build ecosystems, not just focusing only on developers. And that's one of the biggest reasons why we're here. Because again, I think that because this is such a technical phase, this is such a technical ecosystem technology, much of the focus has been, the early focus has been justifiably on the development community. But overall, if you want to create a real ecosystem that's actually going to create real businesses, you have to start welcoming more people into that ecosystem. And that means being radically inclusive and creating educational on-ramps that aren't just focused at people who already are very, very talented developers, but people who are coming from all angles of this ecosystem and into the center to meet us here. And that's kind of the philosophy that we're trying to target here. The way that I like to phrase it, I don't know if you're familiar with startup weekends, but I like to say the goal is really to be more startup weekend than hackathon. The quick overview, startup weekend is I believe it's run now by the Kauffman Foundation. It was actually the first entrepreneurial thing that I did when I was getting started 7 or 8 years ago. And basically they kind of, it's a 54 hours to launch a business thing. Has anybody ever done a startup weekend? Does anybody know, do you guys know what it is? Oh man, it's really cool. It's basically, it's like a business hackathon. And at the beginning of the weekend, on Friday, you show up and you basically, I mean, the format varies just a little bit, but you kind of show up like we have here today, and you identify yourself as a developer, a designer, or a business person, and then they jam you together on teams. You have to have one of each on each team, and then you proceed to you pitch your idea like a hackathon, and you kind of just spend the next, 54 hours building that idea and launching what's supposed to be a real business. So for me, I did one in Austin. That was one of my first introductions, and ever since I've really loved this idea that it's about bringing together multiple types of people, and not just focusing again on purely developers, because that's the difference between launching an app and launching a business. So I think I'll do a show of hands in just a minute, but in terms of products, I mean the way forward, it starts with products, right? The goal of a product is to build something that people use, right, and take it to market. Generally, you find 5 phases in that, plus or minus. I know everyone kind of has a slightly different model for this, but generally, you kind of look at it, or I kind of look at it like you have strategy, you have product design, you have product development, marketing, and management. Sometimes this is all kind of just the same person doing it, but in the bigger an organization is, the more you start teasing those apart. Blockchain is still really focused just on one of those things. It's really focused on product development, and I think that's been sort of to the detriment of the design, the marketing, the management, the strategy communities. Not entirely. I mean, I don't want to totally straw man it, but I think we can all acknowledge that we are very early in this adoption of more disciplines coming into this. So the way that I like to simplify this, and the reason that this meetup is called Product Design and Development, is because you can kind of group this together and say, if we kind of group it together with strategy, marketing, and management in kind of the product or the business in the startup weekend terminology umbrella, an effective product, an effective business comes out of combining the three legs of design, development, and product. And again, that's kind of why this whole meetup has been framed that way, is that these are all three very equal and independently important aspects of putting together a real business. So the intentions for the group, as I mentioned, is really it's just about uniting the ecosystem. So it's about being emphatically cross-disciplinary. It's about being hands-on. So tonight we're not doing anything specifically hands-on, but the goal going forward is to definitely focus on things that you can use. I mean, because in the end of the day, education is great, but unless you can actually apply it in your everyday life, it doesn't really, it doesn't have quite the same effect. We also want to be, as I said, educationally inclusive, so really trying to build on-ramps for people who might not have an on-ramp right now, who aren't necessarily technical in the way that a lot of the educational materials are technical, or where if you've fallen into the educational vacuum, as we like to call it. I know our friend from Insight, we've talked about that. And then, of course, obviously have some fun, meet some good people, because this is a meeting zone, this is a melting pot, and we're kind of trying to grow that from here. So as far as today goes, this is the kickoff. This is the beginning. So we have the board up front. It has a lot of instructions, which is not exactly the best thing to do in a usability-focused meetup. But I know at least some of you were able to look at that, and just to reprise. Basically, what we're trying to do is determine what are we going to do in the future. So we have sticky notes, and if you have ideas for meetups or for speakers, please place them on the board. And as you're on your way out, we have all these little colored dots, like the ones that are on your name tags. And if you actually put them underneath the proposals or the sticky notes that you actually agree with, or the ones that you really want to see, then we'll have a really good indication of what should we do next. So this is democracy in action. You guys vote for what you want to see, and we'll make it happen. In terms of the name tags, as I mentioned, I know some of you have done it, some of you haven't, but the goal here, the idea is that if you have a green dot on your name tag, you're sort of one of your specialties is product. If you have a yellow dot, one of your specialties is design or UX, and if you have a blue dot, one of your specialties is development. So that's kind of what that is, and just kind of helps drive conversation so we can see who everyone is. Since not everyone can see everyone right now, I just want to do a quick show of hands. Who would identify with a product specialty or a product focus? Awesome. Who would identify with a design or UX focus? Okay. And who would identify with a development focus? Awesome. Okay. So we're still a little light on the design side, but hopefully we can change that. And oh yeah, blockchain experience. Quick show of hands. We'll do, let's say, 3 levels. Who would consider themselves a blockchain newbie? All right. Who would consider themselves kind of like middle ground, figuring it out? All right. And who is full on in the industry and working in it pretty much every day? Great. Cool. Well, the last thing I just want to say is it would be great to if you could put your name on the email list, then we'll be able to have a much more direct way of contacting you. You know how this works. Meetup's not great. So we'd like to try and build that on the side as well. So as far as today goes, this is more or less where I stop. We have 3 speakers here. We'll do roughly 20 minutes for each. Questions, if they're able to end early, we'll do some questions, but ultimately we'll all be sticking around for a while afterwards, so feel free to reach out as well. Come and talk to us afterwards. And then at the very end, we'll have plenty of time to finish off the pizza and get to know each other a little bit more. So today's speakers, on the product side, we have Garrett. Garrett from Nodle. I'm sure you guys will have a chance to introduce yourselves, but design, we have Sarah Gregory from Coinbase, and on the development side, we have Ronald, who's working on Composite. So you guys will get to know them a lot better than I could introduce. And then final, I have to obviously pitch that we are hiring at Near. We're hiring for a lot of different roles. So if you're on the community side, the design side, the growth side, the product side, or pretty much every side that we have, please talk to one of us or check out our website, and we'd be happy to have you engaged. So with that, I want to say thank you all, and if we could just give a quick round of applause. Our first speaker, Garrett.
So hi guys, I'm Garrett Kinsman. I thought I'd talk to you guys a bit about the product and a little bit about just kind of my journey, how I discovered crypto, and eventually leading to what I'm building now and how we're using some of the most cutting edge technology that we have available to help build the future of connectivity. So what I'm going to first show you guys is probably the first real product experience for blockchain and cryptocurrency. And this is probably going to make some of you guys laugh. It's this. I don't know if you guys can see this, but this is Silk Road. So in the early days, say 2011, 2012, some of my friends would call this the glory days of blockchain. This represented the vast majority of all the volume on the Bitcoin blockchain. And I discovered it. My friends were talking about it in school, and I said, this is kind of crazy. It's kind of interesting. So I started to learn more about it. Of course, I would never do drugs, but it really helped me learn that, there's this new technology out there that's emerging. And of course, this was really the beginning of it all. I eventually moved to San Francisco and joined a startup called FireChat. And as a side project, because I'd learned more about crypto, some of our friends tried to build a way to make crypto more easy for people to use and interact with. Because even I had a bit of a hard time understanding, how do I get crypto? What do I do with it? How do I hold it? So we decided to build physical cryptocurrency wallets, which were basically cold wallets that we printed out, and I did the design, and we tried to make it tamper-proof. So this was really my first experience really holding Bitcoin, and my friend gave me a whole Bitcoin for free just to play around with. And we actually ran around the city of San Francisco at nighttime through the Tenderloin, trying to hand out Bitcoin to people and see if anybody wanted Bitcoin. Nobody could really understand it. Nobody wanted it. And nobody really wanted to hear about it. They wanted cash. It got to the point where we tried to hand out Bitcoin for free to people, and people wouldn't even accept a whole Bitcoin. They said, I don't want it. No, I want cash. And so I actually went around Dolores Park as well. I put on a white hat and held up cards that said, Bitcoin for sale, $100 for a Bitcoin, and no one would buy it. Nobody wanted my Bitcoin. They didn't want anything to do with it. They didn't understand it. So really the first, the tools were available. Really the first tool was Satoshi's white paper and the things you could do on the dark web. But the awareness wasn't there. So really I'm going to talk about the tools. I'm going to talk about the awareness. People didn't understand what crypto was. And then I'm going to talk about the incentives. Now, this led me to FireChat. So we were building mesh networks, some of the largest mesh networks that had been created in the world. And this is a picture of the Hong Kong protests. So in this crowd, the cellular networks would not work. So people would use peer-to-peer communications, Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, to create a large wireless network that they could use to communicate with each other. The problem is that they didn't really have the incentive to use this new technology, and after the protest, the technology died away. But it was a very interesting experiment. But we had the building blocks of these new technologies. We had the building blocks of the awareness that you can build networks like this. You can leverage cryptocurrencies. But the dots hadn't really been connected, and there hadn't been the incentives to use these new technologies. So this really brings us into the future. Skip ahead 2 years. I spent some time in India and came back to kind of this new world of everyone's starting to talk about cryptocurrency, and I'm walking around America totally jet lagged and trying to understand what's going on here in San Francisco, and everyone's like crypto crazy. And we really kind of bring us now, say a year ago, to the maximum hype and everybody talking about Bitcoin and Ethereum and all of these new cryptocurrencies that came out. But the product, the experience still wasn't there, and it's still not there today. What I'll show you is this is probably the premier way to interact with the Ethereum blockchain. So if you were involved with an ICO in the past year and maybe you got some tokens, this is how you'd get them. But just to get to the website, you have to go through all of these screens, and I have to click, and I have to keep clicking, and I have to click some more. And now I want to send some Ethereum, and I get this, and maybe I want to use a mnemonic passphrase, and it's not easy. It's very, very difficult to understand. And when you start to incorporate smart contracts and regular people like myself trying to interact with smart contracts, it becomes very difficult. So again, the tools are there, the awareness is there, but the incentives and the experience aren't there yet. And this is where it gets really exciting, because we're at a moment where people can start to build these technologies and it can become accessible for everybody. We're almost there. Another interesting thing is this. You might have seen this. This is called Ether Delta, which really was a turning point in my life when I saw this, because I realized that you could have a decentralized marketplace that you can't shut down. You can download this code on GitHub and you can run it. And this is very dangerous. The US government actually went after the guy, very similar as they went after Ross Ulbricht, because this technology is powerful. This technology has the power to change the world. And I realized that people can start to leverage these decentralized technologies to build tools that people can use. And this is where it got really exciting. And another interesting company that's doing something is Stellar. And Stellar is making it easy for people to interact with regular currencies and use that as an onboarding tool to blockchain and cryptocurrencies, and get people the currencies to really get started. And so we were at this point where we had the technologies, we had the awareness, and we were ready to start to build something. So say this was maybe 2 years ago, we started to say, look from our learnings from FireChat, and how can we use these new tools to incentivize the largest wireless network on planet Earth? So what I want to show you now is a very brief summary of what I'm working on now, really from these learnings of trying to give away cryptocurrency in Dolores Park to seeing massive incentivized wireless networks fail because there was no incentive. And what I want to begin with is saying that our core vision was to make connectivity available everywhere. And we want to leverage existing infrastructure to do that. So this is what my full-time project is. And so we wanted to build the largest wireless network but not own any physical infrastructure. Do this through decentralized technologies. And all these other companies have built massive companies by doing this. They don't own any physical infrastructure, but they are able to become very, very large. So the problem today with connectivity is that it's not simple, it's very expensive. If you have a small device that you want to connect to the internet, it's very difficult to do that. You have to connect to a cell tower. It's complicated, it's not easy. So we set out to make it simple, global, and low cost. And we now had an arsenal of tools built over the past 10 years of cryptocurrency and cloud computing, and we could combine these together to create something new. So the problem here is, and this is where you start to get the incentive, is the amount of data that an IoT device is using is increasing exponentially over time. So by next year, devices are going to use more data on the internet than people. So we have the incentive, we have the demand for connectivity that somebody has to meet. So we solve this solution by making Bluetooth available everywhere, globally, using a crypto-economic incentive. We give app developers a way to monetize their apps by installing software that turns each phone into a node. And this phone can connect to other devices in the environment and locate objects, locate and connect to IoT devices. And if you do this with many app developers over millions of phones, you can cover whole swaths of countries with decentralized crowdsourced connectivity. And this provides a way for app developers to monetize by meeting the supply and the demand without impacting the user experience or the user privacy. And this is something that you really only could do with cryptocurrency, because doing this before with regular finances would cost not only millions of dollars, but it wouldn't be fast, it wouldn't be immediate, and it wouldn't be global. So what we've been able to do is incentivize app developers through a cryptocurrency to be able to cover the whole United States with wireless connectivity. So this is over 1 million daily active nodes that are contributing to our network. That's individual smartphones that are creating IoT connectivity to devices around them. This is most likely the largest wireless network in the world by number of base stations. And we're able to do this in 8 months, leveraging centralized and decentralized technology and distributed ledger technologies. So our use cases, we can do lots of things like locate objects and connect, but I really want to make this about the story of product and interacting with cryptocurrencies. We're in discussions with partners tracking things like bike sharing and vehicles and industrial applications. So we've been able to build this network that can do lots of things, leveraging this crypto-economic incentive for app developers to expand the network. At the beginning, the utility of the network is very low because no network exists. But the app developers believe that in the future there can be value. So the crypto economic impact creates value for the network. And as that expands over time, actual network coverage is created. And that creates the demand that then backs the value of the coin. So through these economics, we were able to cover a whole country with wireless connectivity in just a few months. And to do that through any other way would cost hundreds of millions of dollars, if not billions of dollars, to roll out physical infrastructure and incentivize people to deploy that infrastructure. Just a few years ago, we wouldn't be able to do this. So I explained how distributed ledger technologies provide the incentive for network growth, but they also enable us to grow in every single country. We don't have to do a bank transfer to 50 different countries. We can do it immediately and in a way that is very, very simple because it's the same. But also we can use these distributed ledger technologies to secure the data that's moving through our infrastructure. We can provide levels of access control through a smart contract that allow only the specific people that should access an IoT device to access this data. So we've created a new way for app developers to monetize without impacting the experience and without selling out private user data, and then giving an access control to the devices that are all around us to who specifically can access the data on that device. So that's really in a summary. I just wanted to finish by showing a map of what our network looks like right now. And just kind of to give you a breather, because I think I was speaking very quickly, and I made up this whole talk in the past hour. But I think that gives you a good idea of how we have the tools today to build these technologies. We have the awareness because of what happened over the past year, because of this giant bubble that was created. And we're starting to see the glimmers of the incentive and the glimmers of the user experience to make these products accessible to everybody. And this is what we've been able to create in just a few months, leveraging these technologies. That's roughly 1 million daily active nodes. And with that, we see over 10 million unique IoT devices every single day. And we're growing over time. This is just the beginning. I guess I can go a bit into where I think a lot of this is heading in terms of product. And then maybe you guys can ask some questions. Do you have any questions right now? Yeah?
You're using the IoT devices to do mining?
No. So we've developed we call it a proof of connectivity. So a smartphone will capture data from IoT devices around each phone. It moves that to the cloud, and we have validation nodes that will then validate that the work that was performed was not fake. And that will create the incentive for the app developer. Yes, sir?
The app developers that you're working with now, is the idea they would share that revenue with the user that's using their app? Could they be ultimately the end?
So they can do that for sure. And we're working with some app developers that do that through coins within the app. But ultimately, we want to provide a good user experience for the end user. And that means not showing ads. That means not taking their private information. And today, if you have a free app, especially if you're on Android, you're giving something up. You're generally giving up your privacy, and you're giving up your eyeball time to view advertisements. So we're creating an alternative revenue source for these app developers that doesn't impact your privacy by tracking you and doesn't show you ads. And we believe that's a really great user experience and another way for these app developers to make money. Yes?
How do you typically deal with the consent problem around using someone else's mobile data plan?
In general, we use less data than an advertising SDK. So an advertising software that would run on a mobile app would use lots of background data to track people and show advertisements and push videos and things like that. So we generally use less than what Google or Facebook advertising SDKs would use.
How do you expect it to change as IoT data usage increases?
Generally, human data consumption doubles every single year. So we don't see it as a huge problem, but we're also building ways, for example, a consumer app. So a consumer can install this app and they can be earning what we call Nodle coins by contributing to this network. So then they can actually gain control over the earnings of their device.
That's normal practice for...
So yeah, pretty much every app that you have installed on your phone, they're just using your background data, they're mining you for information and things like that. Brave is a web browser that actually blocks this, and they break down the savings. So if you go to Brave browser, you can actually see the breakdown of the cost savings of the background data that advertisers are basically downloading from your phone. And it's really scary stuff because this data is being aggregated, it's being weaponized to win wars, win elections. So we really believe there should be another way for these app developers to monetize that could complement existing revenues. Yes?
What's it like bringing a product to market in a market that might not know a lot about blockchain or products? I mean, like, who are your target customers, and how did you bring this to market?
We generally have to abstract the idea of a crypto for most people because it's, for especially Fortune 500 companies, very scary. If we say we use crypto, big companies will become afraid and they won't want to speak with us. So we say, listen, we provide asset tracking for your devices and data connectivity. And we extract away the idea, abstract the idea that we're using cryptocurrency. And we even provide ways for third parties to exchange payments into our local currency that we can then use to distribute. So we have to abstract the idea that it's crypto and just say that we are providing connectivity. And for app developers, it's a bit different because app developers love crypto and they're totally into this. And they say, man, I can earn crypto by something I can install in 5 minutes. They're all for it. So it really depends on who you're talking to. But generally with big companies, because we're a B2B play, it's scary and we have to say, no, it's, actually I had a slide. Yeah, this slide. This is why I have this slide here, just to show that blockchain is used to protect data and secure things, and it's not like, so big companies can kind of understand it. Yes, sir?
Is there a risk of like bad actors putting maybe malware inside the devices?
No, because we only use existing interfaces that are on the phone. So we're not really, we do run a specific protocol on the interface, but because the virus, if the virus could attack that interface, then any phone with Bluetooth would be able to be attacked anyways. So we don't really do anything super special on that level. But the IoT today is very insecure. So we're actually building some standards that we just want to open source so that IoT manufacturers can have a secure encrypted communications, because today it's really the Wild West, and we're going to see attacks for sure. So we want to make sure to mitigate that and provide open source tools for people. Yeah, go ahead.
What is the incentive for the IoT sensor owner to send data to the...
So the incentive for the hardware manufacturer is that it's very expensive and very difficult to incorporate a SIM card into their solution or complementary solutions. So we allow them just to use a Bluetooth chipset, which is very low cost, very low power, and very, very easy to configure. So we make it easy to connect, and it will work anywhere in the world. Now, again, we can complement other solutions, so we can work together with 4G and Bluetooth, but we just make it very easy for the app developer. Yeah. Any more questions? Couple? Yes, sir?
How do you deal with the reliability of the connectivity? Because I can imagine it runs off my phone or anyone.
We focus on delay-tolerant use cases, so delay-tolerant use cases. So we periodically connect devices. We're focused on use cases where you want to connect them as cheaply as possible, not as often as possible. So for mission-critical use cases, it's going to have a 4G module. But if you want to just track a package as it moves through a city, then our network is perfect for something like that. Because with a certain number of users within a given city, it'll work. And so we're doing a partnership with a Fortune 500 company, and we put our trackers on their products, and they just start showing up, which is really exciting. So we can see really, really interesting stuff, and our partners are pretty happy with what they're seeing so far. Any more? Yes, sir?
Many of the IoT sensors that are coming in the market now have mesh technology.
Yep.
Where they do the connection and send data.
Yes.
So was this kind of a competitor to yours?
Oh, no, we can actually help these mesh networks connect to the internet. So it has to connect to the internet eventually, and we just provide a way to send that data to the cloud. And I just wanted to say one or two more words, unless I'm over time. I kind of wanted to just say a few words about where I think a lot of this technology is heading, because we're very early. And where I really feel it's heading is we've got things like this that are starting to make it easy for regular people to use crypto and be able to understand it. Stellar, in my opinion, is a really, really great example of this because they make it easy for users, but also for developers. So we are using Stellar as part of our backend for our crypto, but we're also able to leverage other technologies like IPFS. And IPFS is a really crazy, interesting technology that was really developed around the idea if we want to build a base on Mars, how do we send data back and forth so that we can make sure the internet works on Mars? And they built this whole system around what was done on Bitcoin, but with these very interesting ideas of how do we build an interplanetary file system. And this allows you to do decentralized file storage. So we're able to leverage this and basically create a proof that says an individual app developer did this amount of work, and this work can be checked, and this reward was a result of this amount of work. So it's backing up every single Nodle coin with real effort that was created, a proof of connectivity that we are then storing in a Merkle tree on IPFS with a bit of our own technology. And this is going to evolve so that we can completely decentralize every aspect of our business because we want to focus really on making connectivity great and the services around that. Anybody should be able to help deploy our connectivity, we believe. So things like that are the basic functions of a business, like file storage, are going to start to become decentralized. And where I think it's really going to head is a lot of companies today are looking at something called serverless computing. So the idea of a computer is just being abstracted. And people are just running software in basically modules that you can connect and it just runs. You don't have to worry about managing a system. You don't have to worry about, it's very, very, very easy for a lot of these companies. And you save a lot of money. And I imagine, just like IPFS was built, someone's going to build a completely decentralized computer system that can really run infrastructure-grade software. Ethereum is a very good first step, but I'm not going to be able to run my core software on Ethereum. I need something like AWS or Google Cloud. I think somebody's going to come out with a decentralized version of that that's running serverless computing, and that's really where I think the industry is heading. And that's when real businesses are going to be able to start leveraging these new technologies because of the economies of scale, because of the ease of use, because of the robustness and the privacy factors. So with that, I wanted to say thank you for being a good audience. So I really appreciate it.
Hello, everyone. I'm Sarah. And the state of blockchain design, huh? We're going to do something that I think is super fun that I learned recently, a thumb vote. So if everyone could stick out your fist for me. And what we're going to do is on the count of 3, then basically you're going to do a thumbs up if you are positive right now about the state of crypto design and blockchain design. You're going to be neutral if you're like this, and then if you feel negatively about the current state of the design in the space, then you're going to be a thumbs down. So on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay. All right, take a look around, take a look around. Okay, so that should give you a sense of where we're at right now. But I'm not going to spend a lot of time standing up here tearing everybody down and saying not nice things. But I think we all know this is a super nascent space. And if you think about the small percentage of people that are actually working with blockchain and crypto, and then think about what tiny percentage of those are people actually designing. And call themselves designers, and then what percentage of those people are actually doing good design? You know, like it's just small. And quite honestly, working in that space, I can tell you that what it's like is it's like panic. It's like just trying to keep up with all the things that are being developed and how the industry is doing. You know, and you know, dealing with all the things that are coming out and changes and forks that are allegedly happening. And sometimes it just feels like crazy. So I don't know that there's been a lot of innovation. So I'm not going to spend a huge amount of time talking about the state today. I want to talk a lot about the future and where it could be going and what your competitors might be doing and what you might be able to do to keep up. So the first thing I want to do is raise your hand if you've heard of CryptoKitties? Okay. Keep your hand up if you've purchased a CryptoKitty. Okay.
Almost purchased one.
We'll count it, it's fine. And now keep your hand up if you purchase your CryptoKitty from scratch without having a wallet or any ETH. Nobody? Is that a little bit? So I'm going to take you through that experience today because I think that it's pretty representative of what I think is actually like decent design, but also representative of where we are with blockchain. I pressed next. Oh, arrow. Okay, great. So sorry if you can't see very well. So I'm on the CryptoKitties website and I want to play. I want a cat. So what do I need to play? I need a computer running Chrome or Firefox, a digital wallet, not sure what that is, and Ethereum, a digital currency, definitely not sure what that is. So I read them, it's a lot of words, I'm not really sure, they tell me they need it, sounds good. You know, they're doing a decent job of kind of explaining to me that I need it and all the steps, okay? So I go through it, I'm looking at that, okay, get Chrome from the web store. Now I'm going in, MetaMask, I'm not sure what that is, cute fox, and then add MetaMask, and now we've added MetaMask, not really sure where to go, and then sign into MetaMask, and then they have a new version, okay, so now I'm creating a password, and now they're having me click through some stuff, unique account image, privacy notice, phishing warning, secret backup phrase, and then you have to re-enter the secret backup phrase, and now you're depositing ethers, like, okay, so I guess I'm gonna buy it on Coinbase. Oh my gosh, what even is Coinbase? Who even knows what that is? And I even had to stop here because I have a couple of Coinbase passwords because I have an employee account and a personal account. And we haven't even gotten to the point where I have any cryptocurrency to buy a CryptoKitty. That, to me, is the state of crypto design right now. And it's not the fault of CryptoKitties or MetaMask or Coinbase or anybody. It's just the way the industry is right now. So, you know, my biggest thing is that my problem isn't even with how many steps there are or, you know, how it looks. It actually looks pretty nice. Like, given how many steps there are, they do a decent job of stepping through the steps. My biggest problem with the state of crypto and blockchain design is, why do I want a CryptoKitty? You know, why would that be interesting or important in my life? I mean, if I'm a tech person, then I think that's really cool because I like cool technology. But other than that, I'm not really sure. So on the CryptoKitties website, it says each cat is one of a kind and 100% owned by you. It cannot be replicated, taken away, or destroyed. Cool. Was I worried about that? Is that something I should be concerned about? And so I think that the biggest barrier to the adoption of blockchain products is that we haven't really given people always a good reason to adopt blockchain products. And that's not just a problem with design, it's a problem with product, it's a problem with marketing, it's a problem with a whole lot of things. But I think that's kind of where we're at. So if I could just summarize this, I think the state, my personal opinion of the state of blockchain and crypto design is, looks cool, okay? Lots of blockchain words and apps, and used almost exclusively by blockchain people. And that's not really great for huge adoption. So, like I said, I'm not going to spend a huge amount of time talking about this. What I want to do is, I think that what's important about this room is I'm more interested in the future of blockchain and crypto design, and that's everybody right here. And so I want to give you the tools to do it. And what I'm going to tell you is, like, not super rocket science. It's actually true of any product in any industry with any user base. And so it might sound really simple, but I promise that a lot of people are not doing it very well, and a lot of people who think they're doing it are actually not doing it at all. So I hope that you will keep this in mind. It's harder than it looks. And it's not even cheat codes. So the way that this talk is going to be structured, we'll talk about defining your target audience for your project, defining your value proposition, and testing relentlessly, and why that's important. So we'll start with defining your target audience. So let's say this is you, and forget about crypto, forget about blockchain for a moment. You want to develop a delivery app. You have a startup, you have a great idea for a delivery app. This is you, we'll call you a developer, you can be a product person. Just think of yourself as a maker of any kind, that's really okay. And so when you think about the user of your delivery app, they're maybe not exactly you, and you should probably still do some testing, but they're pretty close to you. I would say that this is true of a lot of Silicon Valley and tech startups right now. Both people who are making it and people who are using it are digital natives. They live in urban areas, they have smartphones that they use really regularly, they're very comfortable with apps, and they in fact even order things regularly on apps from a variety of different delivery things, Amazon, Facebook, Twitter, Uber, like they're very familiar with all those things. So actually, this person has a lot in common with you if you're making this app. So when you say things like, I know users are going to want this, or I've asked around and people want this, you're probably not getting it exactly right, but you're like not that far off. So now this is where I think we are with the state of crypto and blockchain. Let's say that you're a developer, a maker, and you're making a blockchain infrastructure product. I would argue that the same is still true. You actually have a lot in common with your user. You're both technologists. You understand how the blockchains of different kinds, different protocols. You're familiar with GitHub, APIs. You're familiar with non-custodial crypto products. Maybe you're even Redditors. There's visiting like Telegram, Discord, who even knows? And so in the same sense, like when you claim that you know your user, you probably know them decently well. But think about the ambitions of a lot of people in the blockchain space. And I've talked to a lot of these people. I know that you may be some of them. Here you are, you're a maker. You want to make a social good blockchain product. You want to save the whales. You want to cure homelessness. You want to do all these really important things that you believe. You want to create an open financial system, for example. How much do you really have in common with your user in this case? Maybe some, maybe not a lot. It kind of depends. But when you say, no, I've asked around and I know users are going to want this or are not going to want this, do you even know? Have you talked to a lot of those people? Because if you're not talking to those people, I'm not sure you do know. And forget if you're also trying to do something that's going to allegedly help in different countries like Venezuela, store of value, different countries in Africa. I would need a bunch more monitors to maybe put where that person is in relation to you and your life experience. And the problem is, I think a lot of people, they think they know this person and they develop and make for this person without ever actually talking to those folks and testing things on those folks. So I would just say that if you, define who is it that you're building for. It's okay if you're building a blockchain infrastructure product for blockchain infrastructure people. That's all right. Talk to those people. But if you're developing a social good app that's really going to bank the unbanked, you better be talking to the unbanked. What do they do? Who do they talk to? What's important to them? Do they know about blockchain? Do they associate blockchain with Bitcoin and scams and dark web and weird stuff? Or do they know exactly what the point is? What's competing for their attention? What terms are they familiar with? Do they even know about basic finance? Do they know what market cap means? And I think you will be surprised that a lot of your assumptions are not accurate. And a lot of people are not actually having the conversation. So this is a scrubbed version of a persona. Raise your hand if you're familiar with a persona. Okay, so I think most personas are not actually really good because they don't have a lot of, They don't have a lot of this stuff. They have maybe a name, maybe a nice picture, but it's not really based in actual research. It's not based in actual conversations, interviews with those folks. Yeah, but you can, I suggest that you make one of these and I suggest that you post it all over your office, put it, in your bedroom, put it in every book that you read, study this and know it, because then you'll be able to speak confidently about who your user is and then your instincts will be more dead on. And base it in data, don't just assume. So, it will help you prevent from making statements like this. They'll get it because they understand how an ETF works. I've heard this from someone. Not everybody understands how an ETF works. Does your target audience understand how an ETF works? Some target audiences do, some target audiences don't. You need to decide who is the target audience for your particular project. Similarly, everyone's already going to CoinMarketCap anyway. A lot of target audiences are going to CoinMarketCap anyway. Many aren't. So don't be the person that's making these assumptions without actually being able to back it up. So that's number one, define your target audience. Number two is define your value proposition, which is a lot harder than it sounds. So one way that I like to think about this way back in the day when I was in another life, we used to call these WIFMs. And what WIFM, this is W-I-I-F-M if you can't see it, this stands for what's in it for me. What is the actual tangible life benefit that you are giving somebody? And it's harder than it sounds. So I'll give a really basic example. So you're buying laundry detergent and you've got these two choices here. You've got the one on the left, which is Tide, the one on the right, which is all. And so why would you go with the one on the right? What is the actual value proposition of going with the one on the right? It has stain lifter on it, so fewer stains. Okay, that's great. They're easier to get out, less manual scrubbing, and more detergent for less money because it's a bigger thing. So those are the actual benefits that you're going to get if you go with the one on the right. So here's our favorite type of blockchain project, which is on the left we have Google Maps, and I totally made this up, by the way. On the right is Google Maps on the blockchain. Maybe someone's even trying to do this. I don't know. I just made it up. But what would be the value proposition of Google Maps on the blockchain? What is the tangible benefit Maybe to technologists it's pretty cool because then it's like, oh look, I have Google Maps on the blockchain. But for a lot of people, what is the actual benefit from that? And here's an example that might be just a little controversial. So on the left we have Twitter, and on the right we have Peepeth. I'm not exactly sure the right way to pronounce it, but it's built on the Ethereum protocol. It is decentralized Twitter. So what's the value proposition of having a decentralized Twitter versus just a normal Twitter? Like, what's the actual value proposition to someone who's choosing between these? So you could say, all right, well, on Peepeth, we'll go with Peepeth, you can't be censored. So my question to you then, for sure, that's definitely true given how it's built. My question to you is, does your target audience care about being censored? Is that something that actually like prevents them from using Twitter? Is that something they've ever considered? And if you don't know, you should be asking them. So here's another great example, and one that I think a lot of people have not cracked yet. Here is a US dollar versus Bitcoin. And a lot of people will try to explain the value propositions of Bitcoin with it's peer-to-peer, it's decentralized, distributed consensus, secured with cryptography. I had so much fun coming up with these. I was literally asking the people next to me, like, can you help me come up with some more bullets? I got uncorrelated asset class, and it's the future of money. So I see some smiles because sometimes we're very convinced by this. These are good value propositions for us. But here's a quote from someone that we were doing user research on. And he's saying, on Wikipedia, the definition is a digital asset, this is the definition for cryptocurrency, a digital asset designed to work as a medium of exchange that uses cryptography to secure its transactions. And then he says, but it doesn't really give any simplistic definition of what it actually does. So the next time you're thinking about the way that you're explaining your blockchain project to somebody, when you're designing your marketing website and all your features, are you using jargon that your target audience actually understands? So here's a different way of explaining the value propositions of Bitcoin. Easy international payments, stable against government collapse, should that happen to you, and no more Fed. That's a different way of explaining what the value propositions of Bitcoin are. And so then my question to you is, does your target audience care about those things? If your target audience is in Venezuela, maybe they really care about bullet point number 2. But if they're in the US, maybe they don't care so much. Are they sending any international payments? If they are, maybe they care, and if they're not, they're not. So learn what they're up to and what they know about and what they care about, because every target audience is different. And then the third one, test relentlessly. I use this term very deliberately because if you're doing any testing, you're probably not doing enough testing, and that includes me, by the way. I'm probably not doing enough testing. So here's just an illustration of design without testing. So you come up with your great strategy, you've got a great concept, you love it, you're in rooms, you're arguing, you feel very productive, you're staying up late, wireframing, prototyping, building, and suddenly you've got this amazing product, you've sunk months into it, your life, your dreams, your blood, your sweat. And then it turns out, like, whoops, like, did you ever actually test it on anybody? Was it actually what they needed in the first place? Was it designed for the right person? You came up with it in a box, maybe. So here's design with testing. You come up with your strategy, but then you kind of like look at the market and see, is there an opportunity for that? And you see, we had it kind of right, but I'm getting signal that we should go in the other direction. So then you come up with some concepts, and you have a couple of concepts, and you run them by people who are in your target audience. And then you figure out that one is actually performing a lot better than the other, and so on and so on. So by the time you get to the end, you know that you've got it. You're not guessing. You have all kinds of evidence. And definitely you can't just be testing on anybody. You should be testing on your target audience. I'm a broken record on purpose. And the reason that I make such a big deal about this is because you will be tempted to just say, well, I went to the cafeteria and asked a bunch of people, or, my friends say this. We've all done it, and we'll all be tempted to do it. But that means that you're a blockchain person designing with blockchain people in mind. And it will prevent adoption of your product. And it's hard. It's hard to find people who actually meet all of your criteria that you've listed out, to convince them to spend time on you. A lot of times you have to pay them money, but it's worth doing, I promise. So I just want to show you some concrete examples from when we were working on Coinbase Wallet, which is Coinbase's non-custodial solution for if you want to hold your own private key. So if you can't see it very well, I'm very sorry, but these are very early iterations of the design of Coinbase Wallet. And we had a very talented designer, we had a very talented product manager, still do, and they created this amazing interface for what we thought it should look like. And we tested it on 2 versions of target audiences. We tested it on people who were MetaMask users, who presumably understood crypto, a lot of that stuff. And we also tested it on people who were interested in cryptocurrency and knew something about it, but had never bought any before and had never used any kind of wallet or Coinbase product or anything. And what we noticed, it was amazing. You never know what you're going to find until you test on people. The first thing that we noticed was that we told people how, from this screen over here, okay, you're looking at your coins and all that, how would you send Ethereum from this screen? Let's say you want to send it to another address, you want to send it to a friend. Well, we noticed that the people who understood crypto, they would tap on Ethereum, and then there would be a little button and it would say send. But the people who weren't familiar with crypto at all, they looked around, they'd go up here, they'd kind of flail, they'd kind of go down here. They're like, I'm not really sure. I'm looking for a send button and I'm not finding it. And we had no idea that those 2 target audiences were going to react so differently. So the first thing that we said was, oh my gosh, we need a send and receive button right up there. And we would never have known that. Same thing we found when we tested on people who were familiar with non-custodial solutions and had used other wallets versus people who were just Coinbase users of the general consumer products. Then we found that all of the Coinbase users, they went straight to sign in because they thought that they already had an account on Coinbase Wallet, and they didn't realize that it's a different thing. And we were like, oh man, we need to correct for that right away. Because suddenly they're gonna be like, it's not working, you can't log in, problem. And they were like, and then I'd be on the phone with support and we're like, oh no, this is bad. And so one of the things we had to do was we had to educate people on how this is different than the big blue sea that they downloaded from the App Store, and they need to create a new wallet. So these are the sorts of things that you learn that will absolutely kill adoption of your product if you're not doing regular testing. And it happens to the best of us. In fact, I would say that the best testers and the best designers find more bugs when they do testing because they're doing a good job of surfacing them and then correcting for them. So you can do it on just 5 people, 1 round. Take a prototype, test it on 5 different people. I promise you, I won't list you this whole long list of things that you will find. You'll find people getting confused on things you never thought that they'd get confused on. You will find people using your app for way different things than you thought. It will absolutely blow your mind. So try it on just 5 people, I swear. So those are the 3 steps. Like I said, it's not rocket science. It's maybe not even anything you haven't heard in any other like startup accelerator, but your competitors are gonna start doing it pretty well. So I recommend that you learn how to do it as well. So that's all. Thank you. Time for questions? Yeah, if there are any. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I will comment. I was kind of laughing when you were going through the CryptoKitty slides. I literally did that this morning from scratch, no ETH. Yeah, I was actually really impressed. I had a meeting with Dapper at 9:45. I started it at like 9:10 and had a couple kitties and 1 breeding by the time I had to go in.
Wow.
Very impressive, actually, the design.
You know, I think they do a good job with what they have. Like, I definitely don't mean to throw them under the bus. I think that compared to a lot of other crypto products that we probably know and love and are not going to name, like, they do a great job of making it so that you can. My issue is more like it's so many steps that if you're not sufficiently motivated to buy a CryptoKitty, you're probably going to drop out. And the interesting thing is we're all technologists here. You all are bought in. You're here. I'm bought in. I work at Coinbase. And so it's really easy to convince technologists and early adopters to try your stuff because they like cool tech. They're going to try it anyway. Like, to them, that is a compelling enough value proposition. It's everybody else that you're worried about. Yeah.
What do you see Coinbase Wallet being mostly used for?
That's a great question. I think ideally they probably see themselves, and by the way, I don't work on the wallet team, so I probably am not as good an answerer of that question as somebody who works on that team. But I think it would probably be the same as most other non-custodial solutions that are in the market, which is everybody for lots of reasons. Sorry?
The question still stands though.
Fair. Yeah.
Would you say that demand creation or like user experience adoption is the biggest like burning red flag in your mind?
What do you mean by that?
So demand creation would be more like the awareness, like creating, like when you said, why do people want a cryptocurrency?
Mm-hmm.
So like getting ahead of the choice points that you walked us through,
Mm-hmm.
so that they, when they land, they already know that they want one, versus like, you know, going through and having it be so frustrating that
Right.
it doesn't have widespread adoption.
I think it's, so I hear what you're saying about the demand creation. I would rephrase it not as demand creation and more as meeting demands that are already there. Like, I don't want to create a problem that I'm going to try to solve for you. I want to solve problems that you already have. And I just think that a lot of blockchain projects have not convincingly done that because they're not solving real problems that actual people have.
Pilot awareness then, maybe. Awareness of a solution. But you know what I'm saying? Like connecting people's problems and that they know that this is a place that they can get it solved.
Yes, I would say that most people who are making blockchain projects right now do not have awareness of actual problems that people need solved. Yeah.
Who do you think does have good awareness or has done a good job?
Who's done a good job of this?
What projects would you say have this 1, 2, 3 down pretty well?
Oh, sorry, my hair got stuck. That's weird. So honestly, I think that probably the reason that we're all in the room today is because nobody's really doing a great job of this. I mean, like, we definitely wouldn't have to have meetups about the state of adoption of blockchain if it wasn't kind of a problem. I'm sure there are people who are doing it well, but I'm not sure that anyone has like the secret sauce yet. Is that a non-answer for you? Yeah.
How do you monitor if you still have the right design for your users? Because it starts okay with your first designs, and then people start using it, but how do you monitor if you're still having the right design?
Constant testing, I would say.
Do you get a data on how users are testing it, etc.?
Yeah, I mean, definitely a combination of qualitative and quantitative data, I think, is always warranted. You want to have analytics on whatever you're putting out there, but also just making sure that you're always putting it in front of people. You know, there's nothing that really is nothing lights the fire like putting it in front of people and watching them struggle with something you didn't think they were going to struggle with. Yeah.
When do you decide, suppose you go through all of the steps and you feel like you have a good design, when do you decide that it's time to refresh it?
So it sounded like the first question you asked was, how do you know when you have a good design? But the second question is, when is it time to refresh?
Yeah, like refresh a good design. I mean, not that you had.
Oh, okay.
That you already felt that you had something good, but you lived with it forever.
I mean, sometimes designs get refreshed just because designers get bored. I'm not necessarily a big fan of that. I think that it should get refreshed when you find that there are problems with the current one. Either through qualitative or quantitative data, you're realizing that there's somewhere people are stumbling. I don't think a refresh should happen just for the sake of it happening. But you know you have a good design when you know, people are able to figure it out and you're delighting them and they love you.
All right. How's everyone's portfolio doing today? What a day. So I'm going to talk about development. And the state of where it is right now. And I'm going to use a little bit of satire and everything, because right now we're not exactly, I think, where we should be. And a little bit about myself. I have to look up actually what I wrote here. So last year I created a couple of open source crypto tools. With the idea to make crypto easier or easier accessible to more people. I mean, I think right now we are. I mean, what's the percentage of people in the world who's using crypto right now? Is it 1% or maybe even less? And probably like a large percentage of that is using Coinbase, which is awesome, by the way, but not like any decentralized tools, right? And I think we're all here just to make sure that we get to the next 10%. Or maybe the next 20%. Because in the end, I think when we talk about crypto, when we talk about the unbanked, there's a lot of work to do to get to the next, even like 10%. So I worked with a couple of funds to help them set up like the crypto funds. Wrote a few articles on both Lightning, crypto in general, usability, and also as part of my PhD research, trust in peer-to-peer networks. And now and then you see these articles pop up in like crypto paper still. And I worked on 2 hardware startups before that. So I'm going to talk about Composite. This is a project I've been working on for the last couple of months. and basically it's an integrated development environment, which means basically an editor for smart contracts. And it is a tool that works with existing blockchains and existing tool chains. In other words, it's blockchain agnostic. So it doesn't really matter what kind of blockchain you have. It's built in such a way that this product will work with all the existing blockchains. I'm working together with a company called Etherlime to get a better interaction, a better tying together all the tools out there and the tools as editors that people see, just not for Composite, but also for other editors in the future. And I've been testing this, so that's good to hear your story just now. So we've been testing this with a couple of companies, including Axiom Zen. Those are the creators of CryptoKitties. Balance, which is a wallet, Galaxy Digital, True Story, and Coral. These are the companies that are testing my app the last couple of months as a kind of alpha test. So the product will be out in next year somewhere. First quarter will be the beta if everything goes well. And before that, I wanted to just my question would have been like does anybody know this application? But now my question is, can everybody see this application in this small screen? And if so, does anybody know which application this is? Yeah, it's small, I know. Oh, Heart, sorry. Yes, Heart, yes. So this is Turbo Pascal from 1984. And why it's up here is because the market in 1984 was pretty much similar to what the development market is now for crypto. So in 1984, you had a lot of like command line tools. You needed to use you're not a yes. that's all. I wasn't developing back then, at least not like professionally in Pascal. So I mean, this is all what I found on Wikipedia. So feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. So the way it looked like is you had a lot of like different standalone command line tools, which you kind of had to tie together to edit your app, compile, debug, and deploy it and everything. Pretty much like crypto is right now. So what happened is interesting. So the market, they thought, and they is Borland, the maker of Turbo Pascal, is 30,000 people. Was 30,000 people. That was like how many compilers were sold by all the competitors together at that point. Now, how many copies did Borland sell of Turbo Pascal within 2.5 years after introduction? Does anybody want to take a guess? Wild guess?
1,000. Probably 1,000.
1,000. Yeah, could be. What was your guess?
I would say even higher, because there's a lot of people who will buy it and not use it.
Yeah, that's probably true too. Yeah. So when your market is the maximum of 30,000, it might surprise you, but they sold 400,000 units in 2.5 years. So this is like more than 10 times the market size in total, which means that if you have a product that good, which it was affordable and was a good manual, you might be able to expand your market considerably and sell way more copies than you originally thought. And why is this important? Well, the consequence of having like so many developer tools in the hands of so many people was that there was an explosion right after Turbo Pascal came out of applications for MS-DOS. Because all these people, indeed, maybe not everyone opened the package, but the people who did, they created applications for them. And maybe not all of these applications were as useful as they could have been, but a lot of them were. So what Turbo Pascal did is it kind of arguably made the market for MS-DOS, because that was a platform where Turbo Pascal was for, and other platforms that Turbo Pascal was not on may have been left behind at that point. So this is important for blockchains as well, because you want to have as many developers as possible on your blockchain. And if you make it too hard, well, that's going to be a tough proposition for blockchains. So let's go to Ethereum. So Ethereum arguably has like the best ecosystem for developers at the moment. And if you go to their website, they suggest you use a application called Remix. Turns out Remix is not a real application, it's a website. And on a website is basically an editor and a compiler. So I tried it out yesterday. The first thing you get is an error message. You can't really see it here, but it says like the error message. I'll read it out loud. You are using HTTPS connection. Please switch to HTTP if you are using Remix against an HTTP Web3 provider, or allow mixed content in your browser. I have no clue what that means. But there's a button called Start to Compile, which I think just should be compile. So let's click that one. Now this screen pops up, and it says on top here, the compiler returned the following internal error, and then like a lot of text I'm not even gonna bother reading. And then the last sentence is, please join Remix Gitter channel for more information, as if everybody's gonna do that. So this is actually an error that I'm using the wrong browser. So it says here in very small letters, I should use Firefox. And this is kind of the state where we're at. So this is not the most friendly way to get to know. And of course, I mean, if you really want to do this, you can get through this. You can use Firefox and figure out all the other, because this is just the beginning, right? I mean, there's a lot of like issues like this to begin with. So this is not the easiest way of onboarding new developers. And I talk to a lot of like developers who use develop smart contracts on a daily basis on Ethereum, and they're not even using this. They only use Remix to deploy their contracts and use like the different editors to develop the contracts to begin with. So there should be a better way, and there is. So just like MS-DOS in 1984, there's like tons of command line tools you can use for developing Ethereum. And if you Google, you find like a shitload of them. I mean, there's a lot of them. So, and there, by the way, I'm making jokes about this, but the tools are good. But the thing is, if you're a new developer, it's hard to know where to start. So let's look at the website, for example. What websites say. So this is one website. I'm going to read it for you. So it says, the next evolution in tool suites is built from the ground up on .NET Core to meet the rapidly growing needs of the smart contract development community. Push the boundaries of what is possible with a strong testing and security backbone implemented directly in the system. Let's build awesome together. I mean, I have no clue what this even means, what I'm downloading here. Another one. The platform enables a secure and thriving ecosystem of Ethereum dApps and smart contracts. Sure, I mean, why not? And it goes on. I mean, it is hard to find anything what you really need. And the thing is, it turns out you need all of them. Because all these different tools cater different parts of the ecosystem. I mean, there's some overlap, but not that much. This is kind of the idea of all the steps you need for developing a smart contract, right? You have to install the tools. You want to have templates, probably. You want to edit. There's some linting and debugging going on, auditing, unit testing, and deployments. So, out of kind of frustration, I came up with the idea for Composite, and what Composite basically is a layer on top of all the tools. So I'm not taking the tools away, because the existing command line tools work, and they've been tested, and to be honest, they're good. They're really good. But there's nothing that ties them together, and that's what I set out to do. So Composite has an interface, the one I mentioned earlier, the one we're building with Etherlime together. For a standard interface to all these kind of tools, and if not, then I use just Redux parsing to get all the data back and forth from these tools. It comes with a template UI. It has an editor. It has a debugger and an ABI UI, meaning that you can interact with all the contracts once you deploy them. And in this example, I'm using Etherlime, but as easy. I can switch it out and use Truffle, for example, which is one of the frameworks for Ethereum if you're not familiar with that. Because it doesn't really matter what you need use underneath. Or if you want to use different blockchain, that's possible too. Like, for example, the Near protocol blockchain. So what do we do differently? So one is documentation. the documentation currently that you find online is often outdated or hard to understand. So we started out writing a book. So we're busy with the Ethereum book right now, and just to make it easy and understandable what Ethereum is, what smart contracts are, and even like simple things like where do smart contracts even run, for example, right? Because if you get started with contracts, that's not always obvious, these things. And second thing is your dependencies. The dependencies are all the command line tools that we use underneath, and those can be complicated, and they update quite frequently, and they break things quite frequently. The way it simply works is every time you start up Composite, you see an update, so what's available, the versions of what's installed, and if you want to update to a newer version. And that's just simple, one click, and you update all the tools that you need, which like Profil or Ganache or Solium or what have you. It's that easy. Same thing for installing, but you have to do it only once. Next thing is templates. There are templates like for Open Zeppelin, and that's what I'm using as well. But if you use Open Zeppelin, it's still pretty hard to get started. It's not entirely obvious what you have to do. So I'm creating a little bit more than that. So there's more info you can get on what you want to do. This is, by the way, an early example. It has been changing a lot recently. But usually when you start a contract, you know what you want to do more or less. And you don't have to know, I think, which standard, ERC standard for Ethereum you want to use, or what kind of standards you have for other blockchains, right? And once you have that, still, usually in Open Zeppelin, there's nothing that gets you started. So in my case, I added contracts with very simple placeholders, where you can just add your own code with all documented what you have to do. And it turned out that is a lot easier for a lot of people, even like experienced developers, because you're not always like developing the same kind of contract, right? And these are just very simple ways of making life a lot easier for new and experienced developers. And from this interface, and again, this is an older version already, from this interface you can do everything. You can debug, you can audit, you can deploy, like on a local server or on mainnet. And you don't have to be bothered with all the command line tools. This is just the only thing you really need to have. It's the same thing as the Turbo Pascal screenshot I showed you. It's similar to Xcode. It's just a simple question of coding and running. It's that simple. I wanted to end with a couple of thoughts, because I noticed like in this space I talk to a lot of like open source developers who, like me, are developing developer tools, and the one thing that always comes up is financing, which is kind of surprising, because we're in an industry that is probably the richest industry if all the startups that we have, right? I mean, if you know how much money there is going on and all these ICOs and exchanges and everything, yet for the creators of the tools, it's always pretty hard to find like funding for their projects, surprisingly. And maybe it's because like a lot of these tools, because they're open source, they're often free, they're not like really a business. They're a product. They might not be a business. And if they're a business, they're probably not like a VC backable business because of scaling issues and what have you. So we're kind of dependent on things like grants from funds. Like Ethereum has a lot of funds. I think there are like 3, which is pretty special. But turns out like a lot of bigger blockchains and the newer blockchains don't have like those funds set up yet. And you'd be surprised like the biggest ones who don't have that yet. And that's I think holding back their own blockchains, because you want to have like these tools and many more tools for your blockchain. And maybe this is not for everyone, but then grant other developers like so that they can make that kind of tools. And one thing I've been thinking of is I read an article a while ago about Coinbase, and they had this idea for developers in residence, and I thought it was like the best idea ever. Basically, what they had in mind was like hire open source developers, give them like a regular engineering salary, but let them work on their own projects in the Coinbase office, for example. Unfortunately, that is not the case anymore. So they kind of pivoted from that idea. But I want to give it to the people here as an idea, because it is an interesting way of helping like the open source community, especially like an expensive area like the Bay Area, to pay their bills and make something together that we all can benefit from. So that was my presentation. Thank you for listening. Questions?
So I know that you've talked to a lot of developers during the process of putting this together. Do you have a good sense of what, I mean, obviously financing is a big pain point, but do you have a good sense of what the key pain points are, say, for experienced developers who are switching into building blockchain, and then potentially less experienced developers who are trying to test out blockchain? What are those key pain points?
So I think the key pain point for like new developers is to get started. So where do you start? Because there's often no clear space where to start from. And for experienced developers, it's often like auditing, for example. So auditing of contracts is either extremely expensive, and there are a couple of tools now that are not exactly there yet, but I mean, but it may be in the future. But that's still a pain point. And what I hear from most experienced developers is if they are used to tools like, for example, Xcode or like the more mature tools, it is a step back or 2 steps back if you try to develop for blockchain, and that is not a killer, but it's kind of annoying for these people, because they're used to being like more productive than they are right now. Yeah.
So my lab is actually starting to put together a developer in residence program.
Awesome.
Tips on like best practices, worst practices. We're like a couple months out, so there's still time to.
Yeah.
How it's gonna look.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know exactly, because it's. I don't think anybody really tried, right? I mean, if Coinbase tried, it didn't last that long. But I do think, yes, there has to be it has to be time constrained, definitely. I don't know what right time is, whether that be 3 months or 6 months or 1 year.
Yeah, it sounds like an internship to me.
It is kind of, yeah, and maybe it's a good idea to talk to like VCs, right? Because VCs have like entrepreneurs in residence, and they do have something. I mean, they do work for the VC more or less, but I don't know what the average time is that they spend at VCs, to be honest. But that might be a good start to look. Yeah, then I'm happy to think with you if you. I mean, yeah, awesome.